Okay, evening folks. So I said I'd put up a video of Domoticz for those that were interested and a few other bits and pieces around my automation. So this is Domoticz. This is the web UI using a theme called Aurora. You can reskin Domoticz with a number of different themes. This one I happen to like. The default one has the menus across the top and frankly I don't think it looks as nice, but there we go. This is the dashboard. It's the default landing page. You can do the dashboard in one of two ways. You can either have a list of your favorite devices. Mine are a bit randomly selected, probably more the ones where I forgot to turn off favorite because I don't really use it. Or you can have the floor plan as your dashboard, and the floor plan looks like that. So you upload a picture of your floor plan and you define your rooms and drop your devices into the rooms. You can see mine are not very nicely arranged in the rooms because I don't really use the web UI to this. We control our automation mostly through either Alexa or tablets on the wall running ImperiHome. So this is somewhat little used, but I will show you how it works. The rest of the UI, fairly straightforward. We have switches. They're pretty obvious. Also includes some kinds of sensors, like doors being open and things like that. Scenes, which are both scenes in the sort of one-way sense of do the following actions and that's that, and also groups of devices where you can say turn this group on, turn this group off. They're both under the scenes menu. Temperature sensors are temperature sensors. You also get to see the humidity, as you'll see here with a couple of these. Weather sensors, these are a bit strange. If you've got combined temperature, humidity, pressure sensors, the pressure ends up under weather. Don't know why. One sensors page would have made more sense, I guess, but it is what it is. And utility sensors is kind of a lot of other types of sensors. So you can see here some related to the system, some power sensors, they come under here, and also for some slightly strange reason the central heating mode and set point end up under utilities when you might have expected them to be under temperature or switches perhaps. So the UI is okay. Couple of little oddities. You can configure custom pages in it as well, which I've not tried because I don't use it very much apart from for configuration. Quick whistle stop tour of the web UI then while we're here. So this is the switches page. You can filter up here using rooms. I will show you room plans in a minute because you need to create room plans at least for this purpose. So if I pick study where I'm sitting, there we go. I can turn the lights off and turn the lights back on again. You can't see that because you're seeing my screen, not me. The other features on here, so looking at a switch, you have these four icons or these four buttons on pretty much every device in Domoticz. The first one gives you a kind of history chart of the device. It's clearly much more useful on a sensor with an analog value than it is with a switch, where you just get a list of on-offs. The second is the settings. So for a switch, you have quite a large range of types of switch, and what you can do with the switch will change depending on these. So if you set it to say door contact, clearly you can't change its state. That can only be done by the device itself, whereas a light switch, you can turn it on and off. You can change the icon, some good ones. I don't quite know what the cat's doing in the automation system, but maybe you've got a cat you can plug in and switch on and off. There are some rather more useful ones down here, and you can upload custom icon sets as well. On and off action, if you've got things that need to be poked by HTTP or by an operating system script, you can do that here. So if you're running ESP-easy on Wemos or Sonoff, for example, rather than Tasmota, you need to poke it with HTTP to make it change state. Tasmota talks MQTT, which is much slicker. Other things in here, there's an interface to the TP-Link smart plugs which Domoticz doesn't talk to natively, and that runs a script. That's about it in there really. Timers, I'll show you an example of a timer on one of my groups because they're very useful there, but clearly you can put timers on devices going on and off. You can do it at the device level or on a scene or on a group. And the bell is notifications, so you can get a notification to any one of a number of messaging services and email when something happens to your device, and that can be a temperature sensor going over a certain level or a door being opened or anything of that nature. If I go just show you the other devices, no temperature sensors in here, let's pick some where there are some. So the hall has one. Sensors, as I said, the graphs are much better with a sensor than they are with a switch, a bit more interesting. So you get the last day, the last month, the last year. There is some ability to customize these and include different values and so forth in them. If you want to do serious charting, then set it up to export data to InfluxDB and use Grafana to do the charts because it's much more capable. These are basic but actually quite useful. The other sensors behave broadly similarly. Scenes and groups. So groups first. Evening Lights here is a group. You can see that everything in it is just a lamp. You can turn it on and off. You can see also up here I've got an alias for it in Controlix, which is the Alexa voice interface for Domoticz. So it's called Evening Lights in Alexa. I can say, Alexa, turn on the evening lights. If I want to add a device to this, took a light, you'll notice there's no choice of on or off because this is a group, not a scene. So the state would be set to the whole group. If I pick a scene, fire alarm activated. So this is one we use to turn the lights on, shut down the ventilation and the heat boiler, that kind of thing. If the fire alarm's activated, you notice in here I've got on and off commands on individual devices. So this scene is a one-shot deal. It will execute all those commands. You can't undo it or turn it off in any way. It's just a list of commands like a more conventional scene in, say, Vera or something. So that's groups and scenes. If I move on to show you some of the setup stuff, so let's have a look at the plans. So a room plan is simply a bucket full of devices, and you can go down here and choose a device and add it. Room plans are actually quite important to Domoticz. Not only do they filter the sensors and switches lists so that you don't have to look at 100 things on one page and try to find the one you want, they're also used by Controlix to decide what's visible to Alexa. So if you don't put it in a room, Alexa won't see it, and you can put it in a room and hide the room. There are also users, which I'll show you later. You can have individual users. So I have one for My Domo at Home, which is the ImperiHome connector, and one for Controlix and what devices they're allowed to see. I can control through Domoticz at the level of individual devices as well, which is quite handy for avoiding Alexa interfering with things it ought not. If we just look at plans, briefly we'll look at floor plans in case anybody's interested in them. Maybe we won't. Excuse us. Floor plans, please. Oh, floor plan edit. There we go. Okay. So there's a floor plan. You upload a picture when you create the floor plan. One little niggle I have is that you can't change the image later. If you get a better one, you have to delete the floor plan and create a new one. Fortunately, a floor plan is just a container. Deleting it has no effect on the devices themselves. Within a floor plan, then you add rooms. I haven't got any rooms left to add because they're all in floor plans, but if we look at something like the kitchen at the back here, there you go, there's the area defined as the kitchen, and you can see some of the kitchen's devices I've placed there. Whatever that one is, I haven't bothered to place. It's the main lights, they're all over the place, so we'll put it there. And that's your floor plan, which comes up here on the floor plans, or you can make it your default dashboard if you've got the thing up and running on a big screen and maybe a touch screen. People can click them. So that's plans. If we look at the rest of the setup briefly, so there's quite a bit of stuff you can control here. Users we can edit, and as I said, you can have, if I pick Control-X as an example, you can decide which devices Control-X is allowed to play with. So there's a couple of float switches there in my water tank. There is no point in Alexa trying to play with those, partly because they're read-only, and I don't really want to sit there and ask Alexa what's the status of the cold water float switch. Domoticz just monitors them in order to turn off the water pump if the tank's running dry. So they're not on the list on the right. You can see the stuff over here I've let Alexa talk to is mostly sensors I might want to ask it about, and things I might want to turn on and off. It does, with Control-X, it does pass all of your scenes and groups are visible to Alexa. There's not, the user control doesn't control those, and they don't go into room plans either, so it just picks them all up. It's one thing to bear in mind. If it's a group, it will be seen by Alexa. MDAH, My Domo at Home for ImperiHome, and Control-X, the setup of these while I'm thinking of the subject. MDAH is a piece of software, it's a gateway that's installed on your Domoticz server. It talks to Domoticz. It presents an ImperiHome standard system to ImperiHome. There's a little bit of port opening and service installation to do, but the wiki for it is perfectly good. Follow the instructions, it works. Control-X is more straightforward. You just have to open a port so that it can talk to the secure web interface of your Domoticz server from outside your network. And then you go and give it the credentials in Control-X's website, and it finds the devices, passes them through for Alexa to discover. Let's have a look at some more setup. So mobile devices are there so that you can set them up for the purpose of notifications and stuff. You can test notifications here. Data push, I mentioned sending data to external databases, and you can also publish stuff to external services if you want to have something else react. Security panel is a bit of a lesser known feature. It lets you set the thing up essentially as an alarm panel with a PIN number and an armed state and so forth. Not set up on mine, so I won't try to show it. Custom icons, I mentioned those. Events, I'll come back to later. Cameras, you can set your cameras up in here and show them on your dashboard. Mine aren't actually set up in here, so because I set them up directly in ImperiHome or just run Acti's own app. And then the rest of the settings, let's have a look at the general settings. So you've got the usual stuff, where am I, so it can work out sunset, what language do I want to talk. You can put security on quite a lot of things, define your local networks so you don't get pestered for a password when you're logging in at home. Notifications, you saw the list back on a device. There's a pretty significant range of notification services it'll talk to, including good old email. And then you've got a few other things. You can back up the database, you can change the theme and turn on and off bits of the user interface. It's quite flexible.